All right. So, welcome to the Love It or Hate It, Just Be Honest podcast. And today we are going to be talking about anything and everything under the sun, just for fun.
All
um,
right.
so, what would you like to start with?
Oh, you want to do the Kierkegaard? Let's do that one.
So, maybe we should explain to our viewers what we're reading
We're
from.
trying to come up with shit that's interesting to hear. So this is what we got. No, so we're trying to think of what start with a poem or a story or something, but something that wasn't long, um, too long, right? Couldn't
Yeah.
you don't want to read you don't want to read a full Dostoevsky novel or something.
Yeah.
But uh, anyway, yeah. So we got to parables and quotes, right?
Okay.
Yeah, but
So,
uh, the parables are fun. I think the parables are fun because they don't necessarily have a meaning. The Jesus character in the Christian Bible spoke in parables, so it's supposed to have interpretation to it. That's what's fun about them. Anybody tells you what they know what it means, I don't know. It's pretty vain. I don't know. You can explain your point though, but it's fun. Everybody should have uh, yeah, have their own opinion for sure. Anyway, so it's a parable, and there's this thing. People supposedly did where while they were in college, they would spend a summer pondering Kierkegaard. I've heard that phrase several times. And I guess essentially just spend the entire summer just reading those parables,
yeah.
Kierkegaard's story and Kierkegaard's parables, and just thinking about what they mean to you,
Okay.
which is some way to fuck off for an entire summer. Yeah. And sound like you're really cool. But anyway, so yeah. And this one's called, I may have read this a long time ago, but I don't remember it. But so let's just say I did never read it. Kierkegaard's Parable of the Geese. And I pulled it off some site where they just talk about it and then they finally have the parable. So I was going to read this.
Okay.
Okay. It's not very long. No, it's not long at all. Okay.
Okay.
Apparently, this is in a book I have in my library that I think I've read. But anyway, to no effect. Okay. A certain flock of geese lived together in a barnyard with high walls around it. Because the corn was good and the barnyard was secure, these geese would never take a risk. One day, a philosopher goose came among them. He was very good philosopher, and every week they listened quietly and attentively to his learned discourses. My fellow travelers on the way of life, he would say, can you seriously imagine that this barnyard with great high walls around it is all there is to existence? I tell you, there is another and a greater world outside, a world of which we are only dimly aware. Our forefathers knew of this outside world, or did they not stretch their wings and fly across the trackless wastes of desert and ocean, green valley and wooded hill? But alas, here we remain in this barnyard, our wings folded and tucked into our sides, as we are content to puddle in the mud, never lifting our eyes to the heavens, which should be our home. I feel like this is a lot longer than I thought, but I think I'm almost done. The geese thought this was very fine lecturing. How poetical, they thought. How profoundly existential. What a flawless summary of the mystery of existence. Often the philosopher spoke of the advantages of flight, calling on the geese to be what they were. After all, they had wings, he pointed out. What were wings for but to fly with? Often he reflected on the beauty and the wonder of life outside the barnyard and the freedom of the skies. And every week the geese were uplifted, inspired, moved by the philosopher's message. They hung on his every word. They devoted hours, weeks, months to a thorough going analysis and critical evaluation of his doctrines. They produced learned treatises on the ethical and spiritual implications of flight. All this they did, but one thing they never did, they did not fly. For the corn was good and the barnyard was secure.
So the geese did everything except fly.
Yeah, pertaining to the subject that the other geese that the goose brought. Mm. So that's a parable, and you're supposed to think what it means, what that story
Yeah.
means. That one's supposedly pretty popular.
Hmm.
Did you get everything? Like, did you? I mean, I imagine I read that pretty clearly. But
Yeah, no, I
um,
heard it. I'm
have you
thinking
ever
about
heard this before?
I've
Ever
never
heard?
heard it before. I haven't read a lot of the parables.
Okay.
So
And
I
I say
find
I
it,
may have read this before, but I don't remember it. It's a weird story.
yeah. So, these geese, they do all these things, but yet they don't fly because why again?
Okay, so remember because they mention existential in there, and I'm pretty sure that Kierkegaard was into the existentialism thing, and he's also religious Christian.
Yeah.
So you could, if you want to take the easy way out, you could say that it's uh like a heavenly thing that you're going to pass on. You know what I mean? Like something
So
like,
there's no point of flying, even though you have wings,
well, no,
because
maybe saying that means that's when you go to heaven or something. The acceptance. I don't know. I'm trying to make a Jesus thing out of it just because he's
right,
in it,
right. I
but I
mean,
don't know.
that's
Hmm.
um so I guess my question is if geese, if God gave geese wings, why would God give geese wings if they weren't meant to fly?
I don't know. Maybe the maybe to swim. I mean, penguins use them to swim.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true. And I guess
ducks, I think as well. Yeah.
do geese use wings when they're swimming, or do they use their
I, I have no
feet?
idea. But I've seen geese fly, so apparently they do fly. These are just
Well, of
geese that have
course they
decided not
fly.
to.
That's what they're
Yeah,
meant, that's what their wings are actually meant for, is to fly.
according
Um,
to Kierkegaard, that is true.
so even though God gave them wings, they they weren't flying with them
Well,
because
you don't have to
that's what I
program
don't,
God into that if you don't want to, though. I mean, you don't have to. You
right,
know.
but I'm trying to understand, like, how do most people interpret this story?
Oh, I have no. Hmm. Oh, no. Uh, it is different. Knee jerk is that he came a calling and he's preaching some sort of a gospel, and this is very loose, but he's preaching some sort of a gospel, and they're trying to follow it, but they're not actually um they're not actually doing it. They're just talking about doing it. I don't know. That's not very good.
So,
Yeah,
uh, what
they're
is the
caught up in
name?
the idea of it. Maybe
What is what's the name of this parable?
the what is it called? Kierkegaard's Parable of the Geese. And this one that I read, it wasn't written very well. There's a lot of grammatical errors in it, so it might have been. It might have. It may. This may not be the exact translation of his story. I imagine it gets to the point though. But
I see. So it's like a summary.
no, it's the story. I just think that this stuff could be translated just poorly, but it doesn't. But either way, I'm just saying that if you found one, maybe there's a change of a phrase that might change your opinion later on. But just going on this one, it seems like they're caught up with the idea of something, but not necessarily the act of doing it. So that's the best I got on that. Do you know the
Found it.
story? Do you know the story, The Three Hermits? Do you know that one? I think
No.
it's that one's uh War and Peace. That's Tolstoy, Leo
Yeah.
Tolstoy, War and Peace. I think he wrote Three Hermits, and it's a short story, which is really rare for Russians for some reason. But uh um this guy, he's really religious, and he's on this ship, and they're out in the middle of the ocean, and they see this island, and it's got these three monks on it, and it's like a tall, thin one, middle-sized one, short, fat one, something like that. You know, that normal pattern that you'd see in any Disney movie. And they're standing there and they're saying prayers, I think, to Jesus, and they're not doing a very good job of it. And so the preacher guy says, well, no, he gets upset about that, and he gets a boat to bring him over to the island, and he meets them, and he realizes that they want to be Christian, but they don't know the prayers right, and he keeps trying to teach them the Lord's prayer, and he'd recite it, they'd recite a little bit, and then they'd forget it, and he just worked with them forever, and they kept saying, they were devoted Christians, but he just couldn't get them to remember the prayers. He kept trying
Hmm.
to teach them anyway. I guess he gave up, or he got to a point where he thought they were set, and he leaves, and he's on the ship, and he's talking about how he kind of hooked them up. Um, and there's this cloud across the water, and the monks start walking across the water to him, and they say, "Oh, Savior, please come back. We've forgotten the prayer. Teach us the prayer. We're not holy." And they're walking across the water talking to him. That's how the story ends.
That's how it
So
ends.
yeah.
Oh,
So you get it? Like they were actually much more holy than that guy was,
yeah.
because it didn't matter about the like the officialness of the prayer. It didn't matter about the details so much as the devotion. You know what I mean? That's what the story, I guess, is supposed
Yeah,
to be.
so it's
I
sort
think
of ironic because they're actually more spiritual, but they think they need to hear
they're
uh
they're probably
the
not. They're probably
prayer.
also gullible. They could be both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So going
But
back
that
to
seems
the
like this. That's like this story. I think
yeah,
the details are distinct from the act, or different.
I found part of it. So going back to this one, the geese thought this was very fine lecturing. How poetical, they thought. How profoundly existential. What a flawless summary of the mystery of existence. So maybe the fact that they can't fly has something to do with the mystery of existence. Often the philosophers spoke of the advantages of flight, calling on the geese to be what they were. After all, they had wings, he pointed out. What were wings for but to fly with? Often he reflected on the beauty and the wonder of life outside the barnyard and the freedom of the skies. So I guess it's a metaphor for heaven, like flying is a metaphor for heaven. And it's supposed to be analogous to like human beings like wanting to understand what's beyond Earth or something, but they can't.
It could be. Yeah.
But it's just kind of a weird metaphor because
Could it be like you're spending your innocence? Meaning those geese that are living on the barn are on at the barnyard are very innocent to the life outside of there, which has all these amazing things this guy's talking about. It's also going to bring with it peril, bad. It's not all going to like the what's that? The Pieta, the one with Mother Mary Magdalene, and she's holding the broken body of Jesus, and it's supposed to be some symbolism. It's a statue that Michelangelo or some dude did, but
Mhm.
it's like Jesus. She let him go out there and do that, to fly in the skies like that, and they broke him and sent him back, so to speak. And that's the risk that you have to take, the chance that you could be broken in soaring like that, like the Icarus thing. I don't know. It sounds like I'm talking out of my ass. I think.
Yeah, so I guess I still don't understand why don't the geese fly in this story? Like what is the writer, whoever wrote this, what are they trying to say
Well, I
by
think flying is giving up the barnyard, right? It's giving
no,
up that you'll get
why
the
can't they
corn and
just
you'll
fly
get.
back?
But
Why
maybe
can't
that's
they fly and then come back?
maybe they can. Maybe that's the implied, like the because if it's existentialism, the idea that you're talking about the world outside and the way things are regarded, then that would mean that once you took flight, you wouldn't want to go back to the barnyard, right? Once you got up there and you saw the heavens, you wouldn't
Yeah,
return.
right.
So is he the
So
okay? If you do
so
Eastern religion, he's the Bodhisattva, is
yeah.
he? The
So
goose?
I guess I'm wondering if it's saying like it's better to just stay curious and stay a student and just listen. Like they were just listening to all these philosophies and they felt content in the learning. And that's why they didn't fly because they were content by learning all about, these lessons.
You're saying the geese that stayed home in the barnyard were the victors in that story. I don't know.
I'm wondering if that's the message. I'm trying to trying to figure out
No, no, I
what
got you.
the
They
what the
did not
meaning.
fly, for the corn was good and the barnyard was secure.
So so they didn't fly because the corn was good?
I think that means if they fly, they're going to give up. I think it's implied that once they take flight, they're not coming back. Like that's when you're the geese and the goose. Geese give up. Which that kind of makes sense. I mean, that geese don't, right? Geese don't kind of, they're not like chickens. They're not like, they don't act like these geese necessarily. They do fly. I read that, what, south for the winter or whatever.
Geese
So,
are geese
uh,
are made to fly. That's why they have wings. That's what they're meant to do. So
are you
this
saying that because of the story or just your opinion?
no, I'm saying I'm saying from a biological standpoint. Like,
No, no, but if they're migratory or not, and I think they are, meaning that
well,
if
all
they do take
geese,
flight, what's it?
yes. that they
Yeah.
fly geese often fly south for the winter and things like that, but also they just fly. Like, do you ever look up in the sky and see geese
Sure.
flying? It's not just because they're migrating. They just fly and they can come back. But I
No,
guess,
but I'm saying that that may be instinctive in a goose, that when a goose takes flight, it's a migratory creature. It's not like I said, chicken kind of hovers for a second and then
yeah,
lands.
exactly.
Owls kind
Yeah.
of stay in one area. The
Yeah.
owls don't take to the sky and go to Florida. It'd be
Right.
very rare for that to happen. But I think these birds, if they do take flight, they're generally headed somewhere. They don't
Huh.
fuck off very much. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, so
But
maybe that has something to do with I'm just trying to understand the metaphor here. Like this parable, it doesn't make much sense.
but I mean, that would mean that that's when they decide to fly, that they would just go away and they would give up all that, the secure barnyard and the corn.
Why can't they just fly back? Why do they
That's what I
why
say
does
is
it
maybe
mean
that's I think that's implied that they would.
imply that once you fly, you can't ever come back?
Well, even if you did leave, then you would leave a vacancy that could just as well be filled by another less curious to fly goose, right? You might give up your seat,
Yeah.
Your Kierkegaard seat. I don't know.
It's
That's an
just
interesting one, though. It's a good story.
yeah, I don't really think it makes a lot of sense.
Really. Oh, come on, it's
I don't think
good.
it makes sense.
It doesn't make sense, but later in life, maybe
No, I'm
like 10
saying
or 15 years.
the parable, like Kierkegaard, who wrote this, that's the author.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm saying,
Soren Kierkegaard. Yeah.
yeah, I'm saying Kierkegaard was smoking weed when he wrote this because it
So you're
doesn't make sense.
not feeling Kierkegaard? Oh, that's a shame. I liked it. It's different because I think the whole point of it is it's supposed to elicit that conversation. Somebody I remember in college when I was really young, there was somebody had described that as art, that the point of art was that it elicits conversation. Oh, that was because the campus had recently added art to all the campus. They had art added all over. And that was the explanation that was given, was that art should inspire conversation. And that would make people talk around the campus. Great idea. Great. Yeah,
Mhm.
whatever. It's a very expensive decorating idea. But anyway, but so maybe that's the point of this. If you and I are talking, then he wins. Just us blathering on, or
Just because
me.
we're talking about it.
Yeah, I mean,
But
right? I mean, that wouldn't matter.
if we don't understand the message of the story,
Hmm. Okay. For they did not stretch their wings and fly across the trackless wastes of desert and ocean, of green valley and wooded hill. So he is drawing them to that. If they take off and fly with him, then he's going to take them across the trackless wastes of desert and ocean and green valley and wooded hill.
what's wrong with that?
They don't seem to agree. They would rather have the corn and the protective barnyard, which is interesting.
So what is this a metaphor for, is what I'm trying to get. Like, what is this trying to say about human beings and religion?
That people talk all the time about being okay. Let's do a Christian thing. They talk all the time about being Christian and write treatise on it. And what else did he say? What was all the stuff? Uh, uh, let's see. What does it say? Thought up provided essentials. That's memory. Um, yeah. So people do thorough analysis of Christianity, and they do critical evaluation of the doctrines of Jesus Christ. They produce learned treatise on ethical and spiritual implications of flight. That's people talking about being heavenly, right? Angels and whatnot. If I just said that without the story, it would sound like I'm talking about Christianity. So
Hmm.
that maybe that's it. That people bang on a lot about being a Christian, and they're not really a Christian.
I don't understand how that relates to not flying. Like, I
Well,
don't get it.
that the
So
flying would be the
I'm saying,
actual. The
what is
flying would be
flying a metaphor for? Is flying a metaphor
being
for
a Christian.
enlightenment, going to heaven? Like, what is flying a metaphor for, is what I'm trying to
Flying
understand.
flying is the metaphor for being a Christian.
Being a Christian?
If you want to do Christianity with this,
Oh,
yeah.
I see. So if flying, if he wrote this with the intent of making flying a metaphor for being a Christian. He's saying that the geese are missing out on flying because they're sticking to their comfort zone. So if that's the case, then the parable makes a little more sense because it's pro-Christianity and it's saying that the geese are missing out on flight, the geese are missing out on Christianity, on like a happier, freer existence because they're stuck in what's familiar and comfortable. The corn was good. So I guess
Sure.
if that's the metaphor, it makes a little more sense.
They're agreeing with the philosopher. They're agreeing with his philosophy, and they're talking a lot about it and arguing about it and doing everything but actually practicing it
Mm-hmm. The
because his
geese?
philosophy. Yes, yeah. So the same thing as if you don't practice what you preach, right?
Yeah,
So yeah,
right.
yeah.
So
What's
it's
the okay?
basically, yeah. Okay,
But
I get
there's in the Christian stories where the Jesus character. I am not religious at all, but it's so funny that I keep anyway. The
it.
Jesus character, when Pontius Pilate says to him, "Are you the Son of God?" Jesus says, "I am because you said I am." Kind of like the Popeye answer, you
Yeah.
know. But it's a clever answer because that's kind of the parable of the speech. That if I think if you take that as a parable, which I think it's what it's meant to be, the answer that it means that you're not a Christian if you have to say you are. Somebody else says you are, then you are. He's the Son of God because he said he is, not because Jesus said he was. Jesus could have walked in there and said that. He could just well have been called crazy. But it's the idea that somebody else says it makes it true. So if I say I'm a Christian, that's meaningless. But if you say I am, it means something,
Hmm.
right? In that regard, because you
Mm-hmm.
have to have that moral, you have to have this. If you were for just the Christian term, or just say a nice person, if I say I'm a nice person, that's meaningless. But if you say I'm a nice person, then it means something because I would have had to have been nice to you.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I have no evidence saying
Yeah.
I'm nice,
So I
right?
guess I guess the question is who's the moral authority on, like you're saying it's more acceptable for someone else to judge another person than a person judging themselves.
No,
Or
I'm saying if you're making an outward judgment of something that you're presenting to the group or presenting to
Mhm.
people, for you to make a judgment on what's being presented is irrelevant. It's what the people see.
Mhm. That matters more.
It would have to because that's what they see.
Yeah.
Me saying
That-
it, me,
So it's
and
sort
I
of
don't.
like
Yeah,
it's
but
sort of
yeah.
like if I was saying I'm a man, but you see me as a woman.
I think you're stretching that a bit, but okay. Okay. No, no, I'm
So,
saying that I'm saying, but I'm specifically with like the Son of God thing and Christian that like that would require somebody else to say it because the tenets for that, the tenets that would make you that would have to elicit that type of response from somebody. But you saying it's kind of like me saying, shit, I'm trying to think of something that's a good example. I think a nice person, say you're a nice person, and you would need somebody else to say that. You saying it is just bragging. It
well,
does
it's
doesn't. You're
it's
actually the opposite of
also,
nice.
yeah, I mean, I don't think
You
there's
wouldn't be nice.
anything
Yeah,
wrong with saying what your intention is. Like, I could intend on being a nice person, but if you're not receiving my behavior as nice, do my intentions matter?
sure, sure. That's fair.
Because a nice person can't be nice unless they're just, I mean, I could say I'm nice to myself and then I don't need anyone else's validation for that. If I know I'm kind to myself, I don't need anyone
All right.
else to say, "Oh, yes, you are kind to yourself," right? But if I'm saying I'm nice to you,
What's
that's
that
my
mean?
that
Yeah,
means like my intention is to be nice, but if you're receiving something different,
sure.
I guess the
Yeah.
question is what's more valid? How I see
I,
myself or how you see me? What's more
I,
valid, you know?
hmm. From knee jerk, that feels like it's off topic, but that might actually be on topic. I don't know.
So how does that relate to this parable?
Oh, that they're practicing it, studying it, and becoming making a doctrine around a subject that they know nothing about because
Yeah,
they've never actually done it. They've
because they've
never.
never actually flied, but they're just talking about flying
Is
as a
it flied or
metaphor.
is it flown? Is it flied or flown? I think it's. Is it
I don't
flied or
know.
flown? He
I don't know.
flied. Maybe if you're flying something, but if you're flying yourself, it's flown. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I.
Yeah.
But you don't think that's it? That it's kind of like somebody like you see those Christian people that are real braggadocious and they're online and they do speeches and debates and everything and they bang, but then you find out later that they're just some pedophile or some horrible they're always the worst person too. They're not just somebody that, hey, we caught him at a bar having too many drinks. Something like, no, he was raping children. Like I think he did the worst thing. Think of the worst thing you can think of. This is what this fucker did most of his time. Yeah, what was the one guy? He was anti-gay. I can't remember his name. Shit. He was anti-gay and preached all these awful sermons, comparing it to bestiality and all this stuff. And then it turned out that he had a male lover who supplied him meth, something like that. And he got caught. You don't remember that one? Swaggart.
No.
Swaggart. No, maybe not be Swaggart. I don't know if I can remember his name. But yeah, he get his male lover supplied him meth or something. I want his male lover was a prostitute, or maybe he was just easy. I don't know. But either way, he seemed to like the thing that he preached against. He ate a lot of pork.
So just basically being hypocritical. So
That's the
hi
best way.
Swissar.
What's that?
Hi
Huh?
Yellow
How do you
Ducky.
how do you see people popping in?
I'm following the Twitch stream. So hi Swissar. Hi hello Ducky. How are you? So we are live streaming this podcast. If you want to follow us on YouTube, it's Love It or Hate It, Just Be Honest podcast. We're gonna export it there. So if you missed anything and you want to watch the whole conversation, follow like it or love it or hate it, just be honest podcast.
It was
Love it
something.
or hate it.
It's
Yeah.
something. Let's just get there. Hey, I'm trying. I don't see the live thing on mine. I don't think
But
my
you have
computer
to go
likes
on
it.
my Twitch to see it. You probably have to have the Twitch app.
Oh, hold on. I might have something for
But
that.
my Twitch is just Kim_Ham.
No, I think you had sent it to me in the past. I think I just found it.
Yeah. Um,
Hmm.
so anyway,
You don't like that story. So that story, you won't remember it in such a way that you'd want to tell it to somebody. Like that's
no.
not it.
No.
Really? Oh,
No.
okay. All right.
I don't think it's a good story. I don't think the message
Think
is
it sucks.
clear. I don't think the message is clear. I think it's kind of a stupid story.
Oh, really? You're knocking Kierkegaard? Damn.
But I mean,
Mm.
maybe the next one I'll like. Let's read it. You want to read another one?
A Kierkegaard? I don't know. Let me see if I can find another one. I mean, after you just blasted that one, damn. He's dead, right? Like he died. Well, if you're doing that to poor Kierkegaard.
I'm just being honest.
I know.
That's what our
Yeah, I think yeah,
podcast is called.
yeah.
Love it or hate it, just be honest.
It's in the title. You got to do it. It's funny because the book I think that no, I have he wrote a couple like short stories too, or short books. But the book I know for sure that has his parables that I have that I can't find. Every time I click on one of these links, it shows me the cover of that book. Like, go get it yourself, bitch. Let me see if it'll.
The Parable of the Geese.
You found that one, right? Okay, shit. Now I know one of his parables. I remember it. I can just tell you that one. It's the one I got from the book that it keeps showing me the cover of. But I can tell you a parable.
I can
Or what I
find
can do, or do you want me to do one of these quotes I got over here?
whatever you want to do.
Let's do the quotes because then it doesn't require a long ass. I feel like when I'm reading a story that I shouldn't be reading it, I feel like somebody's tuning in and looking at that and going, "Look at that asshole reading to me." I don't like being read to at all.
No,
No,
I
not at
don't.
all. I don't
I
like being
don't
read
mind
to.
it.
I'd rather you just give me the text. I don't like people read because people put enunciation on phrases. They turn up certain things. They'll make a stupid voice for another thing. I don't know. I don't like people reading to me.
Here's a couple of things I just read.
Let's hear it.
Um, Kierkegaard maintains that we should do good because it is good in itself, not because it is a means to happiness.
What is that? Are you talking about the explanation for that parable?
No, this is a moral of Kierkegaard. This is one of his morals. We should do
Ah,
good just because it's good itself, not because it means it is a means to happiness. So instead of like pursuing instead of being good to make us happy, we should just do good for the sake of good.
no, it makes sense. Yeah, I feel like that's a good thing to say.
A good thing to say?
Hey, I'll be right back. Yeah, no, yeah, yeah. You want to say all the good things.
I mean, I think that's a good thing to say, but I don't think that's a realistic uh lifestyle. I think the reality is human beings are naturally programmed to pursue happiness unless you're like masochistic. And it's a good thing that being good usually makes you happy. Um and I don't think there's anything wrong with being good for the sake of your own happiness, especially if it is good. I mean, what difference does it make your reason for being good, right? As long as you're being good, that's a good thing. So whether you're being good for the sake of happiness or being good for the sake of good, why does that even matter? So I guess that would be my argument there.
All right. I heard everything you said. I what's the arbitrator of good? What's decided? Are we doing so? We're doing like Christianity, so we'd say that Christianity is the good, like that. I mean, you have to have some measure. Like you couldn't just say
Right.
good and just
Well,
leave it alone. You'd have
how
to
you
explain what
measure
that is.
good, how you measure good is also open to interpretation. So I guess we should talk about how Kierkegaard measures good. So
He's a
Kierkegaard,
Christian, so yeah,
yeah, probably measures good in the Christian sense of good. I tend to
whatever
measure
the fuck that
good.
is.
I tend to measure good and what's productive or
Mhm.
constructive. I tend to measure bad and what's destructive. I think of something good as something healthy, constructive, productive, and what's bad is destructive, unhealthy. Um, so that's kind of how I measure those things, but he probably measures it according to like Christian philosophy.
Sure.
But my point is if I'm following Christian philosophy because I think it'll make me happy, what difference does it make? Like, why does that matter if I'm doing it for
With
the sake of my own happiness or just for the sake of being good? Why does that matter?
well, if you were for the sake of being good, the same thing. It, I guess selfless seems like it falls in that way. So that's some of the things with the Christian religion, depending on which one of the sects that you're talking about. Some of them are self. Well, they have the nuns. Like the nuns are. I'm not saying they are. I'm saying, but that's how they're presented. That the nuns are selfless.
Yeah.
So you can be selfless, I guess, for Jesus or whatever.
Yeah.
Like when the nuns are married to Jesus, so to speak. And I don't think
So
he calls home very often. Yeah.
so the reason I don't like this idea is because it's almost implying that we should be ashamed for wanting to be happy, which is
I don't.
silly.
How did you get mad? You got mad at the geese? Are you mad at the geese?
No, I'm saying
What?
this particular idea.
It may. I think it means that you're.
It's sort of implying that we should be ashamed for pursuing happiness because it
I don't know that
literally
that's
says
true.
we should do good because it is good itself, not because it is a means to happiness. So that's why I don't like the quote because what difference does it make as long as we're doing good? We're having the same effect either way. And
But
there's
if you
nothing
did it,
wrong with pursuing happiness, in my opinion. So,
but if you do it, if if you do, okay, hmm, so I think personally that people are driven on what is that? Self-interest and pity. It's one or the other or both. That seems to be the driving force for man. That sounds like it's like pity, and then if it sounds like pity if you do the Christian one, and if you do the one you're talking about, it sounds like self-interest.
Why does that have anything to do with pity? Doing good for the sake of good.
Because that's because you would end up doing like selfless acts. So that
That
would
doesn't
seem like
How does that relate to pity though?
pitying because you wouldn't you be pitying another situation
Not
in order to intervene?
necessarily. You can do
Hmm.
good things without feeling pity or
Oh, I'm sure you can. Yeah. But I do think those are driving forces, but not to get too
yeah.
far off topic. But from the
I
Christian
agree those are
perspective,
driving forces.
I do think they're but yeah, just those two. I feel like that drives everything. And I
I
sound so damn negative to say that, but I do think that. Um,
Yeah. No, it doesn't sound negative. But I do think that that's an oversimplification of what
I
drives
mean, yeah,
us.
if you wanted to explain out each thing, but if you ended up back at those two particular points, that's what that's. But yeah, I don't want to hijack the Kierkegaard, the geese, but
Well, I
but I'm
think
just
we're
saying that
done
the
talking
geese,
about the geese. We're
you
moving.
don't like the geese. That's fine.
Well, we've already
So
talked about it. I don't think there's anything else to say about it.
fuck those geese. But you're supposed to ponder it. You're supposed to ponder it for a while. You're supposed to think about it and keep coming back to it
Well,
and just
I'm reading like the underlying morals behind Kierkegaard right now.
you're
Like
reading
the
Kierkegaard's underlying the
Yes,
person who
that's what I
wrote it.
just read. That was Kierkegaard's belief. That's why I
All
read it.
right, all right.
So that's what he said. He said we should do good because it is good itself, not because
Are
it is a
you
means to happiness.
Are you using like a descriptor of him as a means to define this, like the
No,
geese one, or are we just talking
this
about
is
him in general?
Kierkegaard's belief.
No, I'm just saying, are you using that information to try to do the geese to understand the geese story, or just in
No,
general,
just in
just for
general.
the fuck of it? I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, he's an existentialist, right? You have let me see. It's been so long since I did any of that stuff. Existential.
Another thing Kierkegaard said is that life must be lived. It can't be understood through abstract philosophy. He saw life as a journey traveled in terms of one's commitments.
That sounds like it's talking about that story.
I mean, I don't like this quote either. Because yes, life must be lived, but I I tend to believe in what Socrates believed, which is the unexamined life is not worth living. I also believe that the over-examined life is not worth living. I think you need to have a balance of living your life and
Over-examined.
analyzing your life, but the unexamined life is not worth living, in my opinion, because then you're just living without mindlessly,
There's
you're
that.
just existing like a plant or like a vegetable.
There's
You have
that. The story. The Island of Dr. Monroe. Was that fucking Wells? Is that Wells? I think anyway, but there's a scene in there where the doctor is hanging out and he's at the campfire and the creatures show up and they kind of come into the light of the campfire and they're walking around and they're all disjointed and all this shit because they're like half animal, half man. And he
yeah,
says, the doctor says, it is the wantonness that stirred me. That was his line, meaning the wanton is that you are aimless. So if you see like a normal man walking, he walks with purpose. He
yeah,
walks, you can tell the direction he's going, what he's doing. But these creatures, when they presented themselves, were wanton. They had no aim. So it was very obvious that they were mostly that they were animal behaviors. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like they kind of
yeah,
prowl, so to speak. And I always thought that was a really disturbing line. It's so easy to offset a man, to separate the man from that story by saying that. That's just such a great line. Anyway, but yeah, it makes me think of that when you're talking about
wait,
that. Like that's the
what do you
hmm,
mean by separating the man from the story?
meaning that that was the whole point is that those creatures were half man, half beast. But by
Yeah,
him saying the wantonness, he immediately put them to beast because they didn't act like men. They didn't
yeah,
walk like men. They just the way they carried themselves when
they're
they walked into the
aimless.
room. Yeah,
Yeah.
they kind of were disjointed. He talks about that, but they're just like a person walks in the room, they walk up and stand in one spot. But an
Mm,
animal will kind of, like a dog will kind of float around in the room, sniff
yeah.
everybody. It doesn't have aim. So in that
Right.
immediately tells you it's animal. And it's the way he describes it, it separates that creature so quick. But it makes me think about what you're talking about, like the unexamined life would be something like living wantonly and just kind of
Yeah.
just floating like shit through water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just like allowing outside forces to direct you instead of making your own choices, having intention and purpose and goals.
If you
But
don't stand for
that's,
something, you'll fall for anything. How about that?
yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. So that's sort of like why I don't like this quote because it says, life must be lived. It can't be understood through abstract philosophy. He
It
saw
seems to
life,
say that if you, but anything abstract would be different than their philosophy. So it's definitely a sell point for their philosophy
yeah.
that you don't go ask anybody else. Any of those
Right.
abstract fuckers, don't
Right.
ask them. You just keep with us. We got you.
Right.
Mm. Mm.
All right, now it's your turn. You pick a quote. It can be a Kierkegaard quote or something else.
Well, he's okay. So just to say that Kierkegaard was an existentialist, and I pulled that up. The AI thing gave me the definition. Thank you, God, computer. And it's a philosophical perspective that explores the nature of human existence and the question of its purpose, meaning, and value.
Yeah.
That's existentialism, but I mean that's a really daunting thing for people to take on to try to take that all that on, But it's something. It's different. It makes you feel like that's. Some philosophers say that a minimalism idea is a better one, that you're not taking on the whole, that you're dealing more with the very bare meager amount that you need to exist, to kind of come away from that. But I don't think there's anything wrong with, like, when they say that kids take a summer to ponder Kierkegaard and they want to sit around and do existentialism and think about their value in the world and all that stuff. That's kind of a rich kid thing that you can do. But if you get the chance to do that, that's fun. Who wouldn't want to do that? So I kind of get the whole, like, a Kierkegaard thing. That's why I like the stuff, because it's a fun idea. It's a fun idea to think that you take that story, hate it or love it or hate it, and just take it into the woods and sit there for a day and think about it. That'd be a neat way to spend a day, and think
Yeah,
about your value in the world, and how it pertains to questions. I don't know. That's Anyway. I think that's kind of cool. But
I agree.
yeah.
Here's another
And you
another
hate Kierkegaard.
um so to Kierkegaard, truth is to be found in subjectivity of actions rather than the objectivity of facts alone.
I didn't catch that.
Truth is to be found in the subjectivity of actions rather than the objectivity of facts alone. So it's sort of saying
Sounds true.
truth is
Mhm.
subjective
Mhm.
as opposed to like concrete.
Mhm.
So
I like that one. That one's cute.
that one I kind of like a little more just
Mhm.
because I tend to wonder if, maybe there is no reality, only perception. And what's real to me is going to be different from what's real to you. And
Mhm.
every being on the planet has their own separate reality that they're experiencing through their senses.
I think, yeah,
So,
I think you would have to. You need to know each person's, like, belief system or their environment or the things that they think are true in order to understand them. Um, if you
mhm,
were looking at a group of people, go back any point in history, that's one of the first things everybody tries to do is get a hold of their religion or figure out what their thinking pattern was. That makes sense. I think that makes more sense. In other words, I disagree with his quote before. I would disagree with that quote before, for each time that you ran across it and you couldn't put the objective in front of the subjective. That would be the way I would disagree with it. So, like, when you were at the Incans and they're cutting people's heads off or doing whatever they did, um, uh, if none of that would be true, because whatever they think is true is true. Um, that objective, like the scientific part, wouldn't come into play there because that data isn't available. So it would just be truth there, and it's whatever they said it is. You know what I'm saying? Like until you could put the equal measure onto it, you wouldn't be allowed the first. Does that make sense?
You're saying until there's a subjective truth, there's no way you can even conceive of an objective truth.
No, I'm saying if you have a subjective truth, but you don't have an equal or appropriate objective truth to match it with, it doesn't exist. It just isn't there at all
The
until you
subjective
have it.
Oh, so you're
The
saying the subjective
subjective
truth
rule.
isn't valid unless
The
the
objective wouldn't be valid in that particular position because the subjective seems to be ruling. Does that make sense?
so you're saying subjective truth isn't valid unless it aligns with objective truth?
No, so
Or you're
uh
saying objective truth isn't valid unless it aligns with subjective truth?
I'm saying objective truth isn't applicable in it unless it's totally applicable, then it would just be subjective. So if just to give an example, if you go look at what is it, 1,001 Arabian Nights or what
Mhm.
100,001 Arabian Nights, whatever that fucking story the title is. The title changed a few times, but anyway, it's a bunch of stories in the deserts, and they have a lot of like genies, and there's a lot of like Muslim Islamic lore is pumped into that. It's a great set of stories. Bunch of Aladdin,
Yeah,
Disney thing. One of
yeah.
those is one of those stories. Anyway, not even really one of the best ones, but anyway, uh, if you're reading those stories and you're trying to understand that time period, then Muhammad was God, and uh, genies existed. All these things, those things were true. Even though we know they're not true, we know for a fucking fact they're not true. But if you read that history and you say that's, you're going to lose out on it. You're going to miss most of the points. You're not going to understand why this character is doing this. You're going to say, oh, it would be more logical for them to go this direction as opposed to that. Yeah, but that's what Allah wanted them to do, or whatever. A sandstorm talked to them. It's the same thing. Like if you look at the book of Job, um, he gets tore down by God because God and Satan get in a big argument, and then Job's wife walks up on him and she says, "Curse God and die," which sounds like the logical thing you should be doing right now to get the fuck out of that, but he doesn't because God exists. But if you look at it like God doesn't exist, then she's totally right. Yes, get the fuck away from this. This is the dumbest shit. Get away from this. But you know what I'm saying? So those time periods when there wasn't an equal or an ample amount of objectivity, then yeah, the subjectivity wins. If you don't look at it that way, then you're going to miss out on the story. You're not going to understand that time period at all.
But isn't I guess what I'm getting at is there's a fine line between objective and subjective truth because if it's universally like what truths are actually universally agreed on as objective? Like what
It's objective. They're separated. I would think they're separated, right?
No, I'm saying like how many truths are universally agreed on as objective?
I don't
Like
know. That's a good question.
can you name one truth that universally we all agree is objective?
But I mean, I don't know. Okay, so no, but I think that the question's flawed. The question's flawed because so subjectivity would mean that you would do that. You would poll everybody and ask everybody because we're doing subjectivity. But objectivity, you wouldn't poll everybody because then that would still be subjective. If you do objectivity, it would have to be independent of the subject. So no, you couldn't do that. Does that make
What?
sense? Like,
No, so
so,
that
so
you're talking about okay, so if you're experiencing something just yourself,
subjective.
right, that's what's subjective.
Yes.
Objectivity is when something is more universally agreed on.
No, objectivity means that it's independent. Like if you're objective,
Independent, independent as far as like in
objective
what
meaning that it
sense?
wouldn't matter about the individual. The individual would be invalidated at that point. Objectivity, isn't I think that's right. Am I describing? I'm pretty sure I'm describing. So subjectivity is
I
based
guess
on the
what I'm getting
subject.
at is
Yeah,
there's a fine line between how we define objective truth is actually subjective in itself, is my point. How we define what's objective is also subjective.
maybe, but it's supposed to be like objectivity goes into that philosophy that you start to find things that are falsifiable and it's independent
Based
of the speaker
on
and it's
based
tested.
on
And
subjectivity, though.
no, no,
Based
but I'm saying that once objectivity starts to step into that realm where you're testing it independent of the observer, you would come away from subjectivity. It would no longer be opinion because the when you hit equals on the calculator, there's nobody's opinion in there. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I think
So
that
like, so,
the
yeah.
things that we define as, oh, this is an objective truth is debatable. Like people don't agree. So how can you call something objective
So
when
objectivity, or the definition I'm thinking that objectivity, that the best way, if you took objectivity and you push it all the way to its limits, you're looking at like a scientific method where you're testing things. You have a hypotenuse or hypothesis, you run it through testing, and you come up with a thesis, right?
yeah.
So that's yeah. So but that's the closest you can get because it's independent of there's no opinion in there.
Yeah.
You're
Well,
trying, yeah.
objectivism is an opinion, is my point. Like, objectivism is a philosophy that there is an objective reality. That's also a school of thought. It's an opinion.
Oh, I agree with that. Okay,
So
I
that's what I
understand.
meant by
Yeah.
like
But
how
it's
we
but
view
it's
what's
still
objective is subjective.
but it's struggling to come away from subjectivity. Like it's objectivity's best definitions are completely independent of personal opinion. Or that's
They're not, though. That's my point. You can't separate personal opinion, is my point. There, you can't
you
separate.
I understand
Like
the
we can
beginning part.
try, like we can
No,
try, but
well, I understand. I get the beginning part where if you say that objectivity, just the idea of objectivity, is an opinion, I agree with that. But
yeah,
then once it's put into practice, if objectivity, if you go through some sort of thing and you run an experiment and, with the principles of objectivity, then that experiment, so like it did like a random clinical trial, some sort of like
okay. Well, in
double
that
blind
sense,
standard.
yes, I get what you're saying.
That's
So in that
yeah,
sense, you're using objectivity in a different,
that's your underlying philosophy, and you're driving that into that. That's
yeah,
I think that's that the goal there is to get opinion out of it as much as you can. It'll still be in there slightly.
yeah.
You try not to have it in there at all, but and people will constantly argue against it. But I don't know. And the original
Just
idea,
saying
yeah,
objectivism is a flawed philosophy, and it's
you're saying that.
subjectivity and objectivity, they coexist. They're two sides of the same coin, is my point. But
It could
anyway,
be.
you pick the next quote.
All right. I think I've been picking these. Let me see. Okay, hold on. But I got a bunch of these. All right. Oh, maybe you like this one. Vain is the word of a philosopher which does not heal any suffering of man.
Vain.
Vain is the word of a philosopher which does not heal any suffering of man. That's
Yeah.
Epicurus. Epicurus.
Okay. I like that because if you're not actually like healing or elevating someone's awareness in some way, then you're just doing it for yourself, which is sort of vain. Yeah.
You like
Yeah,
that
if
one
you're
then?
well, if you're only thinking about like self-interest, like you said, and not like humanity as a whole, as far as like healing, say it
Mhm.
again.
I got no. I could say it as many times as you like. I mean, because I wrote it down because I needed to have it said to me a bunch. So,
Yeah.
vain is the word of a philosopher which does not heal any suffering of man.
The word of a philosopher, which does not heal the suffering of man.
Any suffering of
Any
man.
suffering of man.
So, if you're a
Right.
philosopher and if you call yourself a philosopher, this is my thinking. If you
Yeah.
call yourself a philosopher, anytime you talk as a philosopher, if you're not healing anyone, then you're a vain piece of shit. You're just running your mouth. You're not
Well,
actually a philosopher. Hey, in other words, I guess he's saying that philosophers are supposed to heal.
yeah, I mean, I
Otherwise,
don't
they're
know
not.
if I mean, I think that if you're a philosopher, you're just sharing ideas. But if you're sharing ideas just for your own ego
Well,
and not if
philosophy
you're
means a
sharing
love
ideas for
of
your
knowledge,
yeah, so
right?
if you're
Love of
sharing
knowledge.
ideas for your own ego, for your own knowledge, but you're not actually like sharing ideas that can help heal suffering, then it does seem sort of like a vain thing to do. It seems like it's more ego driven and less like helpful. Like, what's the practical application of just like talking? Like, you can talk all day, but if what you're saying isn't helpful or useful and it doesn't help heal suffering in any way, what's the point? It's kind of in vain. So I think I agree with it.
That would mean that philosopher love of knowledge. Then, if I guess with should a philosopher? Well, that makes sense. Yeah, because so a real philosopher should feel that you need to learn more at the end of the conversation. I think that's fair. If you talk to a philosopher, at the end of that, you feel lacking and that you need to do more and you don't know anything, then you did well. I think that's the point, right? Mm.
The point of a philosopher?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
They
I
don't,
mean,
yeah,
yeah, I feel
yeah.
like if there what I guess what is the point of talking if if talking doesn't serve any purpose? So, I guess that's what makes it vain if it doesn't serve a purpose.
That makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense. I'll take that. Yeah. Okay. So you like that one.
Yeah, I think I agree with it.
All right. All right. Let me try another one. Oh, this is a fun. This is Mark Twain.
Okay.
Samuel Clements. Um, give that man a reputation that he's an early riser and he can sleep till noon.
What?
Give that man a reputation that he is an early riser and he can sleep till noon.
So what? That's just promoting like staying up late?
No, no, no. Come on. Think about it. Think about it.
Give that man
A reputation
a
that he is
reputation.
that he's an early
Okay.
riser and he can sleep
Okay.
till noon.
I don't understand. What's the
So think
point?
about it. So if I have a reputation as a person who gets up all the time real early in the morning, right? Then I can sleep till noon. Who gives a shit? Everybody thinks I get up all the time early. People think I'm a go-getter. It doesn't matter at that point. Give me?
Well, what's the point of giving that man a reputation?
Well, he's making a statement. I mean, but he's giving you an example of a person. But give that man a reputation that he's an early riser, right?
But why?
Everybody thinks he gets up early every day. He's a go-getter. You can
Yeah.
sleep till noon then, because it doesn't
So
matter at
he's
that point.
saying
Hmm,
so he's
yeah,
saying that like if you have a reputation, then you can like get away with contradicting it.
yeah, yeah, exactly that.
Well, if you contradict it and everyone knows you're contradicting it, then you'll no longer
But
have
they
that
don't.
reputation.
They think that you're an early riser.
Yeah,
Think
but
about
if
like a street preacher
but
or the
people
people
can
on
change
television.
their mind. Your reputation
Could
can change.
you could, but think about like the people on the television that preach that prosperity gospel bullshit. They they have that image and they have a reputation that they're an early riser, but they're a piece of shit. Like they don't do any of that.
Well,
You know what I
not
mean? Because they
always.
already have that reputation, so it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. They can do anything they want.
Not
You know what I mean?
necessarily, not always. Eventually, like those priests that molest children, they get found
Oh
out.
Jesus, you took it there.
I mean,
Jesus.
I'm just saying, like, that's an example, like, you know,
Hmm.
especially in today's age, there's security everywhere. We have no privacy. The government's always listening. You
Oh
can
my
only
God.
get away with so much. Like Harvey Weinstein, he might have had a reputation at one point, but that reputation totally changed because he got found out. A lot of I don't know if that applies.
It seems a lot. That's a lot. That's extra. Yeah.
I just don't know if that applies. I also don't know what context like give that man a reputation. Like what is he trying to motivate people to do?
Well, the point of the statement is it's obviously he's satire, so it's a
Yeah.
satirical statement. So
Yeah.
it's think about a parable, but they're probably pulling your leg a little bit too. But uh, Yeah, it's a clever remark because I mean that exemplifies most people that you see is
So
that they
he's
have a
just saying
reputation
like,
for one thing and they're
yeah,
certainly not that, they're another.
yeah.
But the
So
point
he's
is they
just
don't need
saying
to be.
that like
Yeah.
people are different, aren't necessarily living up to their reputation, is what he's saying. People
I think
don't
he's
always
saying
live
that,
up to their reputation.
yeah, that well the people are mostly cons,
Cons.
frauds. Frauds. Yeah, they're
Well,
frauds.
I don't like to think that most people are frauds, but maybe I'm
No,
wrong.
but
I don't know.
certainly those that have that reputation that don't do it. Yeah. But okay. You want to do another one? I
But
like Twain though. Twain. Yeah.
I guess how did they get the reputation in the first place?
You could maybe at the interview when they had the job, they told everybody they were, and everybody kind of took them at their word, and they got that reputation, and they never did it.
So is he saying that just like giving a reputation in general isn't smart?
No, I think he's making a commentary on the fact that if you have a reputation for doing certain things and you don't actually do them, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. So people who you can pretend to do something and get elicit the same response as if you had done it with the general populace. So I don't know, but it's you can call it anything you want, but I think that seems like that exemplifies most people that you see that are a lot of talk and not much
Well,
action.
maybe
And
I
that's
just
okay
happen to.
as long as you're thought of as having a man of action, right?
I don't think so because in your heart, you know the truth. So even if you're deceiving people into thinking you're something you're not, you're still
Mhm.
living a lie, and that's not fun.
I think you're going all Kierkegaard on this one because
But
that's existentialism.
I'm
Um,
saying, like, I don't know why most people would want to contradict their reputation unless they're just
if you're a piece of shit, you
sadistic
definitely want people to
people.
think of you as a nice person,
Unless they're just
right?
sadistic, right? But I guess I happen to know people that are what they say they are, you know?
No,
So not
I,
everyone's like that.
we would. Oh no, I'd hope not. Okay, let me think. Let me see if I got another one here. I got a bunch on here. I'm trying to see those that I can see from. Okay, well, maybe you don't like that.
If it's
Oh,
something
here.
I don't like, that's probably a good thing to talk about.
All right, let's have it. All right,
I like refuting things. That's to me refuting things is just as fun as, you know, liking them.
I'll take that. Oh, here, let's do this. This one's pretty. This is Christy Brown. You know who that is?
No.
You ever seen the movie My Left Foot with
No.
Daniel Day-Lewis?
Oh, I
It's
like Daniel
really
Day-Lewis.
that's one of his best movies. Great
Really?
movie.
I need to see
Yeah.
it. I think
But he
he's such
plays
a good
Christy
actor.
Brown. It's a true Hollywood story or whatever.
Oh, okay.
But it's a person with Bell's palsy or cerebral palsy. But
Oh, okay.
anyway, yeah, a character. But the quote was, "Hope deferred maketh the heart sick."
Hope deferred?
Maketh the heart sick.
Well, yeah,
I'll be right back.
if you
Think
don't
about
have
it for a
hope,
second.
your heart's not going to be well. Yeah. You have to have hope for your heart to be well and healthy. I think if you don't have hope,
Not
then
medical. Not medical.
so I think I agree with that.
It's not medical.
Well, I know like mentally, emotionally unwell, you have to have hope for your mental health. I think hope is good for your mental health. So your heart, your
Hope is good for you.
emotions
All
aren't
right.
going to be, you're not going to have like healthy, um, you're not going to be as healthy if you don't have any hope. You're going to be sick.
I think you're reading that a little literal.
Okay. Well, enlighten me then. How do you interpret it? How do you interpret it?
Hope deferred maketh the heart sick, meaning that if you take the hope away from a person, then their heart dies and they die. If a person
Yeah,
doesn't have hope, there's no meaning.
I agree. Yeah.
Is that fair? It's a pretty statement. He was really into Shakespeare, or he seemed to be in the one movie that I watched about him with Daniel Day-Lewis. But he seemed to like Shakespeare, and Shakespeare, he's interesting, and he seems to have that same vein. So I don't know.
I mean, I like it. I guess my question would be hope For what? Like, what are
Hmm.
you hoping for?
What's that? Oh, who would fardels bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that dread of something after death, the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveler returns, puzzles the will and makes us rather bear those wills we have, those ills we have, and fly to others that we know not of. That's Shakespeare. Hamlet.
You oh, you know all that. That's cool that you know all that, like, off the
I
top of your
like
head.
Shakespeare. I don't actually like Shakespeare, but I actually read a lot of it. But I no, I don't know shit about Shakespeare at all. Hmm.
But how do you know that off the top of your head?
Oh, because that's a good one. That's Hamlet 3-1. That's a very popular piece.
But how do you just know that? Like, you must have read
Okay.
it a
Well,
lot.
on this wall, I actually have it, but I didn't read it off of there just now. But I don't know. I like that one. I like there's quite a few of the Shakespearean pieces. Like some of the stuff he says, the way he turns a phrase is really fun. I don't know. When I was younger, I got into him a lot. I don't think he's the best playwright ever. Aristophanes is better in that regard, but I don't know. Shakespeare's interesting. I like him.
So, you didn't deliberately memorize that quote, it just happened
I guess I mean, but when you read Hamlet, you have to kind of read it a bunch. So yeah,
to
probably.
understand it? Yeah.
Yeah. And I tried out for a play for the Comedy of Errors and a couple other Shakespearean plays when I was younger. So I may have, yeah.
So
Oh,
you must have read that a lot and thought about it a lot to have it, like, permanently in your mind.
no, but I mean, there's a lot of quotes, but you got them too. Everybody's got something like things that get burned in your head if they're meaningful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the only quotes I remember are lines that I had to memorize for plays.
That's fair. I
But
remember,
it's not like I remember things just from reading them.
and I
I would
don't
have
even know that what I put it was right though. It could be wrong. Like I could have gotten all over the page. Like,
misquoted it.
yeah, of
Okay.
course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I have to make
but
a conscious effort to memorize a quote
I do
like
too. Yeah,
so
I
you
would think
must
I
have
have to.
so you must
I
have made
may,
it
like I say, because I tried out for a couple of those plays, but that's been, like I say, this board is from, there's dates on here from 14 years ago. So yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, but I've memorized songs before. So maybe the same thing. I don't know.
yeah, well, I mean, Shakespeare is very rhythmic, it's very musical.
It's
Uh,
pretty. They're sonnets, right? They're pretty. And they
but
have a nice flow to
songs,
them.
I mean, songs you have to hear over and over again before they stick in your mind. So you must have either read that over and over again or like consciously memorized it. I'm just curious how
Well,
it ended
but
up.
I do have it, like I say, I do have it written up here. So if
Yeah.
I have it written up here, that means that I did deliberately sit and write it on 3x5 cards. So if that's not memorization, that's got to be some degree of it when you're writing down all those lines.
What's your
Oh,
what's your favorite Shakespeare quote?
I don't know. I'm like I say, I'm not an expert on Shakespeare, so I don't know.
You like Shakespeare. You're just not an
No, not necessarily. I like some parts of it, but no, he's not. Like I said, I like Aristophanes better than that. Aristophanes, you know him? He had the one where they make fun of Socrates and they have Socrates in a basket and they keep way going up and down. And there's another one where the Spartan women all get together and they take over the kingdom. But I don't know. It's
Oh,
pretty.
Lysistrata?
That's it. Yeah,
Yeah, that was Aristotle.
the Aristophanes.
Aristotle.
Aristophanes.
Are you
You can look it
sure?
up.
Are
Positive.
you sure it's not Aristotle?
Aristotle's a totally different person, different time period, totally different time period.
Lysistrata. Now I have to look it up. Oh,
You
you're
can.
right. A play by Aristophanes. You're right. You're right.
Bam!
I'm mixing
AI is
up.
gonna tear you apart
I
when
knew
we
it
do
was
this
like
little
one of
cut
those
video.
A names.
No. But
No,
no, Aristotle's way later because you got your Aristophanes is way back, and then Aristotle would be way forward.
yeah, you're right. You're right. I don't know what I was thinking. But
What's that?
Lysistrata, I did study that play before in high school in my like
It's a
high
pretty
school
play.
theater. Yeah. So
It's pretty. I think it's like sexual independence for women. Sexually, just because Lysistrata seems to really like lifting her skirt up. But anyway, it's an interesting story. I don't know how you did that in high school because
well,
there's that scene.
I remember reading it in high school
Oh, but
and
you guys didn't do a play, Lysistrata
mm,
play. Oh, I
I
was
don't
about to
think
say because there's
so. Yeah.
there's scenes in there that would seem like it'd be hard for a high school girl to do.
We did it in college, though. I know my college put on Liz Estrada.
Hmm.
So it was a college play.
You want to do another quote?
Yeah.
All right. Let me see. You might like this is Thomas Paine, which I
Okay.
wouldn't think it'd come from Thomas Paine from the Age of Reason. It would. So, the sublime and the ridiculous are often so close, or often so nearly related that is difficult to class them separately.
I am familiar with this quote and
Bam.
I really like it.
Okay.
I like it.
That's it.
Well, yeah, I can relate to it. The sublime and the ridiculous are very closely related that you can't, it's hard to separate them. Uh,
Um,
because
Marx.
because a
Uh,
lot of times when you're experiencing something that feels sublime, it's almost so sublime it's like ridiculous, you know, it's you feel silly, but I think that like embodying like silliness and like embracing like the madness of the world, like just embracing like kind of craziness, um, ridiculousness, embracing that in some way is
mhm.
sublime. Because life doesn't always make sense. And you know,
All right.
life can be confusing. So if you just embrace the nonsense and embrace the ridiculous and you can kind of dance with it and have fun, that's like feeling sublime because you're feeling a state of peace among the chaos, you know, a state of
I
bliss
get that. That
among the
seems that
nonsense.
this okay. So did you ever go through Thomas Paine's Age of Reason, the book?
No, no.
Oh, it's him, uh, turn of the century. Every book's turn of the century. He's writing against restrictions on speech, religion. He's essentially in the new America, and he's kind of pushing for the laws that we enjoy now, or pushing for the logic of their application. And freedom, religion, everything. He knocks on religion a bit. He knocks against the crown, the king, because we're still kind of fighting all that. They come back over and burn the White House I think after he dies, because we have the War of 1812. But I think that's right for him. But I don't know. I get the idea that he's saying that kind of things that people think are beautiful and excellent. I guess I'm looking at politically, that
Are
they're
actually
very close to,
ridiculous.
or they're so close to ridiculous that they're just fucking with you.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
got
know. Maybe that's how I took that when I read
no,
that, because
and
he rallies
that's
against government a
definitely
lot.
that makes sense. That's another way to interpret the quote, which
Mhm.
I can also get behind because if something is so sublime, it's hard to believe that it's true. You know, it's almost like this is too good to be true. This is ridiculous, right? So
I'm with you.
maybe he wrote it with the intention of like making fun of people who believe in all these beautiful, like, you know, the meaning of life is something like beautiful and sublime. He's saying that's sort of ridiculous. Like they're very much related. But I can interpret it in like a positive way where maybe you have to be a little ridiculous in order to feel like that sense of sublime. I don't know. Um,
Hmm.
I interpret it in a positive way, but again,
No,
I
yeah,
didn't
you
know
made
the
it a lot more
context.
positive. Yeah, you took it a whole
Yeah.
lot more positive, which is great. I don't think that's a complaint. Hey, okay, I got one. How about one from? I'm sitting here looking at them. I'm picking those that I can read from here because it's pretty far away. Um, well, you know Tokerville. You know him.
No.
You know, Alicia Day Tokerville. Like I'm saying his name right. Elise
That sounds
Alexis Day Tocqueville.
that sounds
He
somewhat
wrote Democracy in America.
okay.
No,
I've probably read some quotes by him, but I
yeah,
never read
it
like
might be reading
Democracy
in
in
school. It might
I've
be
never
reading in school. Mm,
oh, okay.
mm.
I've definitely
But
never
he,
read Democracy in America.
I mean, but you might have read quotes because I mean, it might be part of our education in school. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he he came over. I think he's French. Pretty positive he's French. He came over to the United States after it had already been formed, and it kind of the machine had been running for a bit. And he kind of surveyed it, and he talked about the good things they were doing and the bad and whatnot, and how things were going to change and how they were. And he was using comparisons to Europe and whatnot. And a lot of his stuff's pretty true, but
Yeah.
he's an interesting fella. But anyway, this is a quote from him. It's a good. It's I say that because it has a very political and very American type feel to it. It's
Okay.
very like very masculine or manly quote. I think. Right, that's
Okay.
not the right way to say it, but whatever. Bold. It's a bold quote. Okay. For myself, when I feel the hand of power lie heavy on my brow, I care but little to know who oppresses me, and I am not the more disposed to pass beneath the yoke because it is held out to me by the arms of a million of men.
Yes, I've read that quote. That's like a famous quote. I've definitely
Oh, is
heard.
it? Okay. Shit,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wrote that one down. I like that one. Okay.
I've definitely heard that before. Um,
It's
I
pretty.
it's kind of dense. I like it because he's basically just saying I'm not defined by my oppressors,
Sure. I like
right?
the weight of the brow, the yoke on the weight of the brow. That's such a good the pictures that elicits in the quote is it's very pretty. It's a great way to put it. But that doesn't that seem really American? It's like a really robust American. No,
Well, it's from his book about democracy, right?
sure, democracy in America, but
Yeah.
he wouldn't necessarily he would be French,
Yeah.
but they would have their own version of it, and we stole a lot of that to write our stuff. So he would kind of already be an aficionado of that, so to speak, in his country, but or should be. But I don't know. I like that one though. It's pretty. I can't believe really. So that's a people like that quote.
It's a very I like the flowery language.
Yes.
Um
All
yeah.
right. Let me see. Well, shit. Let me see. Um, if there's anything good here. Let's see. Oh, you might like this. This one's kind of sad. How many people are watching this, by the way, right now?
Um I don't know. It's hard to tell through Twitch. I found a quote.
Let's hear it.
This is by Madalena Elizabeth. The things I carried. This just randomly popped up, so I'm just letting the universe decide what this. I don't know if it's good, if it's bad, if it's lame. Too many things I have carried, too many things I thought I needed to come with me. I didn't realize that I was laden down, heavy with burden. I didn't realize on me was a backpack filled with things I didn't need. So I began to empty it out, to unload the guilt and the stress and disappointment. There is a lighter load for me, things to carry that have no weight at all. There is truth, there is mercy, there is hope, there is love. I don't know how that populated on my algorithm, but it just popped up. Okay.
I don't know that I understood it.
Well, it sounds like she's just letting go of the thoughts that no longer serve her, letting go of guilt, letting go of like the past, things that are kind of weighing her down, probably from the past, just letting them go and opening herself up to a brighter future.
Hmm.
That's what it sounds like to me. Like that she used to carry the burden of things maybe she shouldn't really carry, like guilt. I guess
Mhm.
to me it's more about guilt. Like there's something she lots of things she feels guilty for, like not doing or maybe things she did. And so
Oh,
she's just letting go of
uh,
it.
there's the story where the two monks. are walking through the woods and they run across this little girl or this young lady. Sorry, I should say young lady, and she's standing by the bog, a body of water, and she asks the monks, if you're going that way, could you carry me so I don't get wet? Because the bog is water. And so the one of the monks immediately scoops her up, that Hollywood thing, and carries her across the bog. And they get to the end, he sets her down, and they keep walking. Well, they go for miles and miles. And the other monk says to the one who carried the girl, hey, you know, just curious, but that's kind of our thing that we don't mess with ladies, and we're they're like Benedictine type monks, whatever. And I don't know why would you have done that? Why did you pick that girl? It's not something we do. And the guy says his response is, I picked the lady up and carried her to the bog's edge and I set her down. And you didn't. Like
Okay.
he's still carrying it. Like you're still carrying the girl. I put her down. Like that's back there. You know what I mean?
Oh, like he's still
He's kind of
thinking.
hung up on that.
Yeah, he's like hung up on the past. Yeah.
He's hung up on the
I put
baggage.
her
I guess that,
down. Yeah, I
yeah,
let it go. I put her down. I
yeah,
put it
I'm
in
done
the
with that.
past
Yeah,
now.
you're
Yeah.
you're the one that's hung up on that, not me.
Yeah.
Like I'm already
Okay.
set her. So
I
that's
got
I
it.
guess that's kind of going with that. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like a metaphor for just being present in the moment because that's all
Hmm.
you really have. It's good to learn from the past, and the past can inform the present, but to dwell in the past seems
That
un
sounds terrible.
unproductive. But I
Yeah,
do
nobody
think it's
wants to watch the old Terminator.
yeah.
What's that?
I do think it's important to learn from the past. So again, it's like balance. Like you can't just ignore the past because then you're not learning. Like our past helps define us, but we get to choose how to apply that knowledge in the present. And we don't have
Huh.
to constantly in our mind relive the past to learn from it. Because once you've learned from it, you can just move on. And there's no
Hmm.
point of, you know what I mean? So
I would hope so. I think that I think that learning actually is shit. That's gonna sound really vain, like I said that way. I think that if appropriate learning, if you learn something, you should feel dumber when you get done.
I like that. I actually
Yeah.
like that a lot because if it's like really good education, it's not just telling you things you kind of already knew. It humbles you and it reminds you that there's still so much more to learn. If it's
Yes.
a
Yeah.
good quality educational experience, you walk away changed by it. You don't
Well,
walk
you.
away
Yeah.
just feeling assured, like self-assured, like, "Oh yeah, that's what I thought." That's
Yeah. Because
boring.
then you'd be what? And that's the Christian thing. You're seeking and you shall find. Well, of course you would. If you look
Yeah.
for it, you'll find it. But instead of Carl Sagan says, or I think he's the one that said that, seek and keep an open mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
I
I'll be right
love
back.
that. I love that. That's actually what the film that I co-produced, co-wrote, acted in, Twin Flame Hotel, that's been accepted into a bunch of film festivals and it's won awards. That's what the movie is about, is keeping an open mind, staying curious about life, and to not stop learning and asking questions. To stay curious. And also it's about not losing hope. But but yeah, so that's what my movie's about. These are the kinds of ideas I want to present in my filmmaking. I want people to watch my movies and come away, like you said, I want people to watch my movies and come away changed, humbled, and curious, like they've experienced a different perspective or considered something they haven't considered before. So that's my goal with filmmaking because storytelling, I think if it's done well, storytelling is a way to provoke thought, elevate awareness, and
Hmm.
educate in a way that's not dogmatic. So that's what I want to do with my art anyway. That's what Twin Flame Hotel is about. I think that's why it actually won a writing award, but it's won a bunch of other awards too. And I think that's why, because of the themes in the film.
I feel like you were discussing things when I was. Are you answering questions or something? People were asking.
What?
I, you were talking about while I was going, but I didn't hear some of it. And when I
Oh,
came back, you were talking about
I was just talking about my how my movie is similar.
when I came back in and you were talking, and I hadn't heard you for a couple of seconds, or maybe 10 or 15, 20. Do you know the movie The Great Muppet Caper?
No.
Oh, I don't know if you like Muppet movies, but the Jim Henson, the old movies where
Yeah.
it's live action, there's nothing AI, no animation, it's just fucking puppets. You know what I'm talking
Okay.
about?
Yeah.
So there's a scene when I walked in, I heard you talking. And I was thinking how funny it'd be if you were doing this, but there's a scene where all the Muppets in the scene are all talking. I mean, this is all hand puppets. And
Yeah.
then everybody gets quiet suddenly for no reason. And there's this one girl Muppet, and she's going, "Oh, and I like to walk on the beach naked." And like everybody quiets down and looks at her. And then she realizes that she's the only one talking. And I just thought it'd been funny as hell if I'd have walked in and you were talking about something really random, like, I punched, and then I punched him, but anyway,
No,
that's
I was
very
just
off subject.
talking, whether you were listening or not, I was talking for the viewers who are listening. So,
Who, how many, do you know how many people are actually listening? Because I don't have it
well,
on my,
I mean, this is going to be on our YouTube, so people can listen to the recording.
but the Twitch, like, can you see? I mean, is it the same thing as
Yeah,
the
I
YouTube
can't
or is
really
it,
tell on Twitch right now.
no?
But I mean, I think this was a great discussion. So this is going to go on our YouTube channel. I'm going to export it directly. So
I
yeah,
think
if
I'm
you're
gonna,
listening at home, if you're listening to our chatty chat, if you have any comments and you want to weigh in on any of these
please do.
quotes, any of these philosophies, please do comment below. Let us know if you have
Tell
questions,
us,
comments,
tell us which
concerns.
quotes are horribly quoted. Like
Yeah.
we, like one of these that we read that was just fucking terrible. Like it wasn't even close to what the original quote was. Yeah.
And if there are any topics you'd really like us to discuss, comment below. Let us know if you like listening to me better or you like listening to Brian better. And,
Oh, you want to do another quote or you want to call it?
well, I figure we should call it since it's getting
How long
it's
have we been going
you
anyway?
can save it for next time though.
I'm down. How long have we been going?
I don't know. Haven't it's been like
I
at
don't know.
least an hour and a half. We started a little before 6, so
Okay.
it's been almost a couple hours.
I'm down. Okay. That sounds good.
But this was a lot of fun. So thank you for listening to Love It or Hate It, just be honest. And
Yay.
yeah, we'd love to interact with you. So if you're listening to this, yeah, please share your opinion. Oh, Mopar. Oh, Mopar was listening. Hi, Mopar.
Who's
Sorry, I
Mopar?
wasn't even paying attention to the Twitch. We're gonna export this to our YouTube. Love it or hate it, just be honest. And we're going to try to do these regularly and just talk about a variety of topics. Hopefully it'll be entertaining. Hopefully it'll be stimulate your mind in some way. Um,
No
uh,
stimulant.
but I'm Mopar. Thanks for saying hi. Oh, you're doing
Mopar?
mod work. Oh, nice. Okay, yeah, I wasn't even paying attention to the Twitch. Only reason we're doing Twitch is just because we couldn't live stream directly to YouTube. Next time, we're just gonna live stream directly to Love It or Hate It, just be honest, podcast on YouTube. So,
Yay.
so let us know if you love our podcast, hate it, or whatever. Um, all right, so should we call it?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Goodbye. Mopar, you have a great day. I'll talk to you soon, I'm sure. All right. Bye.